The fluorescent lights of Lincoln High School buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the linoleum floors that stretched endlessly down the hallway. Emily Harper, 24 years old and barely a week into her first teaching job, clutched her lesson plans to her chest like a shield. Her auburn hair was tucked into a neat bun, and her navy blue dress, carefully chosen for its modest elegance, swished softly as she walked. She'd spent hours the night before practicing her introduction in front of her bedroom mirror, her voice trembling with a mix of excitement and dread. Teaching was her dream, born from years of watching her late mother, a beloved English teacher, inspire students with stories and ideas. Emily had always been shy, the kind of person who preferred books to crowds, but she'd promised herself she'd step out of her shell to honor her mother's legacy. Today was her first real test, her first full day teaching ninth grade English. Her stomach churned as she navigated the bustling hallway, students weaving around her like a river around a stone. She kept her eyes down, avoiding the curious glances, the whispered comments. New teachers were always a spectacle, but Emily felt like a target, her quiet demeanor a beacon for scrutiny. She was halfway to her classroom when it happened. A group of seniors, lounging against the lockers, spotted her. They were the kind of kids who ruled the school with smirks and sharp words, their confidence a weapon honed by years of unchallenged dominance. The leader, a tall boy named Jake with a swagger that screamed trouble, nudged his friend and pointed at Emily. "Yo, check out the new teacher," he said, loud enough for her to hear. "Looks like she's scared of her own shadow." His friends snickered, and Emily's cheeks flushed. She quickened her pace, her heels clicking against the floor, but Jake wasn't done. He stepped into her path, blocking her way. "Hey, miss, what's the rush? You lost or something?" His tone was mocking, and the crowd around them grew, students sensing a show. Emily's heart raced, but she forced a smile, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just heading to my classroom, thank you." She tried to step around him, but Jake moved with her, his grin widening. "Nice dress," he said, his eyes glinting with malice. "Bet it'd look better, ripped." Before Emily could react, Jake's hand shot out, grabbing the hem of her dress. With a single, vicious tug, the fabric tore, a jagged rip slicing up the side. The hallway erupted in gasps and laughter as Emily stumbled back, her lesson plans scattering across the floor. Her hands flew to cover the tear, her face burning with humiliation as the crowd grew louder. Jake's friends joined in, one of them yanking at the other side of her dress, tearing it further. "Oops, my bad." The second boy jeered, and the laughter swelled, a cruel chorus that drowned out Emily's shaky plea to stop. She felt exposed, vulnerable, her carefully built confidence crumbling like paper in a storm. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall, not here, not in front of them. She bent to gather her papers, her hands trembling, when a sharp voice cut through the noise. "Enough." It was Ms. Carter, the stern history teacher, pushing through the crowd. The bullies scattered, but not before Jake tossed a final taunt. "Welcome to Lincoln, miss." Ms. Carter helped Emily to her feet, her expression a mix of sympathy and frustration. "Are you okay, dear?" she asked, guiding Emily to the staff room. Emily nodded, though her throat was tight with unshed tears. "I'm fine," she lied, clutching the torn edges of her dress. Inside the staff room, Ms. Carter handed her a spare blazer to cover the damage, but the gesture couldn't erase the sting of humiliation. "Kids can be cruel," Ms. Carter said, her voice soft but firm. "But you can't let them see you break. You're stronger than this." Emily wanted to believe her, but as she sat in the empty staff room, the weight of the moment pressed down on her. She dreamed of being a teacher who inspired, who connected with students the way her mother had. But now, all she could see was the laughter, the pointing fingers, the rip in her dress that felt like a rip in her soul. Back in her tiny apartment that evening, Emily sat on her couch, still wearing the blazer Ms. Carter had given her. Her phone buzzed with a notification, a video, uploaded to the school's unofficial social media page. Her heart sank as she clicked play. There it was, the hallway, the crowd, the moment Jake tore her dress. The video had been edited with mocking music and emojis, each laugh amplified, each tear in her dress highlighted. The comments were brutal. "El now, new teacher got owned, she's too soft for Lincoln, bet she quits by tomorrow." The video already had thousands of views, spreading like wildfire across platforms. Emily's hands shook as she closed the app, her breath coming in short gasps. She wanted to run, to pack her bags and leave Lincoln behind. But then she thought of her mother, who'd faced her own challenges, budget cuts, difficult students, even illness, with unwavering grace. "You don't teach for the easy days," her mother had once said. "You teach for the ones that test you." Emily wiped her tears, a spark of resolve flickering in her chest. She wouldn't quit. Not yet. The next morning, Emily stood in front of her mirror, her hands steady as she chose a new outfit, a simple blouse and slacks, professional but unassuming. She'd spent the night rewriting her lesson plans, pouring her heart into a lesson about resilience in literature, drawing from stories like The Diary of Anne Frank and To Kill a Mockingbird. If she was going to face her students, she'd do it on her terms. At school, the whispers followed her, but she kept her head high, ignoring the snickers from Jake and his crew. Her first class was a blur of nervous energy, but as she spoke about courage in the face of adversity, something shifted. A few students leaned forward, their eyes curious rather than mocking. One girl, Sarah, a quiet student with glasses, raised her hand. "Miss Harper, how do you stay strong when people are mean to you?" The question hit Emily like a wave, but she took a deep breath and answered honestly. "You find something worth fighting for," she said. "For me, it's teaching. It's you." The room was silent, and for the first time, Emily felt a connection, fragile but real. Over the next few days, Emily threw herself into her work, determined to prove she belonged. She stayed late, grading papers and crafting lessons that sparked discussion. She noticed small victories: Sarah staying after class to talk about books, a boy named Miguel sharing a poem he'd written. But the video still haunted her, its views climbing into the tens of thousands. Jake and his friends didn't let up, tossing sly comments in the hallways, testing her resolve. Emily confided in Ms. Carter, who encouraged her to report the incident, but Emily hesitated. "I don't want to be the teacher who tattles," she said. "I want to show them I'm stronger than they think." Ms. Carter nodded, a knowing smile on her face. "Then show them, Emily. Show them who you are." By the end of the first week, Emily had an idea. She'd overheard students talking about a talent show fundraiser for the school's struggling arts program, an event that drew the whole community. It was a long shot, but Emily saw an opportunity to reclaim her narrative. She signed up to perform, choosing a spoken word piece she'd written in college about overcoming fear. The idea terrified her, standing on a stage, vulnerable again. But she couldn't shake the feeling that this was her chance. She practiced in her apartment, her voice growing stronger with each rehearsal. The night of the talent show loomed, and Emily felt the weight of her decision. Could she really face the same students who'd laughed at her, the same community that had seen her humiliation go viral? As she stepped into the school auditorium, her heart pounded, but she thought of her mother's words. "You teach for the ones that test you." She was ready to fight for her place, not just as a teacher, but as someone who could inspire.